Okay, great, guys. Well, welcome to another episode session of Chef Look Cooks. Today we're going to be continuing our lookalike series. We're going to cook beet tartare. We're not really going to cook the beets because it's just kind of a long process. So I got some canned beets today to make our lives easier. You can use any kind of cooked beets you like. You can cook your own beets. There's a couple really fun ways to do it. You can either roast them whole. You can, cut them up and roast them as slices, depending on how much texture you want for that. If you're going to do that, they're going to dry it a little bit. So when you go to mix them in for the tartare, they're going to have a bit more texture to them, but that can be nice as well. It's almost at that point more like a ceviche kind of, but totally worthwhile to do. I like buying them just because they're easy, but the absolute easiest way to cook them is to either boil them on the stove or put them in a large baking dish covered with water and just bake them in the oven at 350 for like an hour or two. You just want to keep poking them. Eventually a fork will go in and come right out. That's how you know they're done. You take them out of the oven, put them in under cold running water, dump all that water up, cold running water, and just while the water's running and they're still hot, just start to peel them. They'll peel really, really easily. The cold water will help protect you from how hot they are. If you have to wait a little bit, you're welcome to, but I wouldn't wait any more than 10 minutes. You want to do nice and hot. The skins will slip right off. So that's how I usually do cook beets if I'm going to peel them. I mostly eat them either raw or roasted, so I don't often do that anymore, but when I am going to peel them and use them for something like this, in the oven, 350 for an hour or two, covered with water, and that works really, really well. But again, we have cooked beets, so we don't have to worry about that. We are going to start the session today by cooking our egg yolk. It's kind of a silly recipe, if you guys can see on there. It's basically just salted water, but what it really is we're showing off this really cool salt. It's a Himalayan black salt, and so this salt is might look a little familiar to those of you who used pink salt before, but this salt has a very, very unique smell and flavor. It's very sulfurous. And so we're going to use it in this sort of thickened water dish to really sort of invoke egg. You're going to smell it, brain's going to think egg, you're going to eat it, you're going to think egg, and we're going to thicken it so it's got that sort of runny yolk texture. Yolk is a pretty classic ingredient, either in the sauce of the tartare or served on top. So that's kind of what we're going for with this. And plus, it's just a fun kind of thing to learn how to do. This is way too much salt for me to use too. So I've got some bags here. So at the end of the program, if you want to take like a tablespoon or so home, feel free to grab some, put it in a bag. That's how much we got for everybody to share. So just make sure you leave some for others that might be interested. It's really fun to use in basically anything. People will also put it into like bean scrambles. If you blend up beans and then cook them in a pan, put a little bit of this in there. It makes them taste a little bit like eggs as well, kind of like a scrambled egg substitute. It's also just fun if you want a little bit of sulfurous smell in your diet or in your food. So I'm just going to crack this open, and you'll probably get a chance to smell it when I put it in the eggs. But it's pretty strong. It's pretty cool. It's very, very unique. It's something that I didn't even know about until I started looking for ways to make an egg yolk that wasn't an egg. And everybody was like, "Oh, you got to get black salt. You have to get black salt." And so I started looking around the internet and found some. This one is very, very dried up, or rather moisturized. It's a little crunchy, so we're just going to try and break that up first things first, and then we're going to get our egg going. And yeah, you can already smell it just breaking it up. So we are going to get the egg going now because we do want it to cool a little bit so that it's nice and thick, so we can put it on top of our tartare when it goes to eating. So I'm going to get that started right now. And the egg is a pretty simple recipe. We're basically just going to put some water and a couple other things in this pot right here. We're going to cook it until the cornstarch thickens, and then we're going to add the salt in to make sure that we preserve that flavor. So I want to make sure I have enough for everybody. The recipe is a cup. I'm going to do a cup and a half just to make sure we have plenty. That also lets me do a very easy measurement for the cornstarch. I'm just going to do 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. So that's a cup and a half of water. And you can use any sort of starch, depending on what you have. Cornstarch is just really easy. I think was it 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago we used tapioca starch. That would work just as well. But we do want 2 tablespoons in here. Go with the flat side. Cornstarch is pretty resilient too. If you use a little too much, you can always just add a bit more liquid. If you don't use enough, you can always just make a little slurry. A slurry being just cornstarch mixed with water, and then add that, and you'll get the thickening that you need. We're going for a specific thickness here, so if it's not right when the time comes, I'll just add some more in there. Okay, cool. So water, cornstarch. We need some oil. So we want a neutral oil for this. because we really want that salt flavor to come through. We don't want to use something like an olive oil like we're going to use in the tartare, because then this will end up tasting like olive instead of eggs, and we want it to taste like eggs. But we do want some fat in there just because the egg yolks have fat in them. So we want to make sure that when we eat this, our mouth and our body feels, oh, like I'm eating an egg yolk. So it's normally 2 tablespoons, so I'm going to do 3 because, again, I'm doing 1.5. So I'm going to double check I did that right. And this oil, some of my oil has been around for a bit, so you want to make sure you just give it a smell, make sure it hasn't gone too rancid. Rancid oil, depending on where it's at, you can usually cook with it okay, but I wouldn't use it in a raw application. Or in a application like this where flavor is really important. We are going to cook this, but you don't want to taste that oil. If you're putting it in like a high heat stir fry, you're probably not going to notice it. I would still potentially throw it out at that point, but I hate wasting food. So I usually end up using my oil before it even gets to that stage. But and it's a nutritional yeast. That's right. All right, cool. So this is going to be another part of our flavoring. Where's it? Here we go. This is going to be another part of our flavor profile. Nutritional yeast is just kind of like an old, I guess I'll use this one. It's kind of just an old trick for like bringing like a sort of cheesy, savory flavor in here. And that's what we really want. We want to have that nice sort of thick. Plus it's a little bit yellow, which is something we want. It's another reason why we're using the turmeric here to get that sort of yellow, eggy look. So I'm just going to turn that on and start that getting warm while we're here. Okay, cool. So it is 2 teaspoons. So this is a half tablespoon here. So we're just going to use 2 of these because that'll be a tablespoon, which is about where we're at. A little bit extra, but that's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. This one. Again, I'm doing 1.5, so I'm kind of like hacking this recipe to pieces, but you're not going to need to make this much egg yolk for yourself. So, and then a little bit of turmeric for color. And turmeric is intense, incredibly intense. If you haven't, if you don't use turmeric a lot in your own cooking, it's a lot of fun. It makes everything sort of change color. It's a really good way to like fake saffron. You don't have any, it kind of gets that same golden color. It's also really good for you for inflammation, though you usually want to eat it with black pepper, which we don't have in this dish. We're not really using this for its nutritional value. It's more for its color, basically entirely for its color. I do have a 1/4 teaspoon here, perfect. And I'm just going to make that mounded, and that should be just enough. And again, we'll take a peek at it. We'll change it if we need to, but I do think that's going to be the perfect amount. We're just going to whisk this up, and this shouldn't take very long at all. The hardest part about this is going to be just waiting for it to heat up. Once it's hot, it's going to boil and thicken. The oil, which is going to start out as a slick on the top, is going to get absorbed. The cornstarch is going to thicken, and it's going to trap that oil, and it's going to make it a nice emulsification. And the color is already looking pretty good. Looks a little bit like egg yolk to me, so I might put a little more turmeric in there. You know what, that's probably fine. It doesn't need to be like a crazy yellow yolk. We just want something that's going to sort of invoke that that flavor that in our brains. It's a lot. You can do a lot of things by kind of tricking yourself into thinking one thing is another. Your brain kind of makes up the difference for you. So that's kind of fun. Okay, get that on there. I'm going to turn it way up because we do want to boil here. Awesome. So that's that going. I've got my salt ready here. I'm going to just pre-measure that so it's ready to go in right at the last moment. I don't want to overcook this. Once it starts to boil and thicken, it could get a little bit tacky and weird. We really want it to just like be thickened and ready to go. And this is still kind of, let me see if we can shake this up a little bit. Always a problem with salt if you get too much moisture in there. Ooh, I can smell the sulfur. Okay, awesome. So we are going to want 3, and we're going to do 1.5. So we're going to do about 1.25 teaspoons of this. I'm losing my teaspoon. I was looking for it earlier too. That's fine. We're just going to have to pre-measure. So we'll go ahead and put that in a little. Gosh, you got a better bowl over here. This is a good time to talk about mise en place since I have not been mise en placing myself. So all my ingredients are here, but I'm missing a couple like key tools, and that's just a really. Whenever I'm cooking, usually I try and have everything I need right next to me, so I don't have to go looking around the kitchen while I'm in the middle of something. And I've done a decent job of that today. I at least have my ingredients together. But you know, obviously I was missing a couple of my tools, which can kind of be a pain. But luckily, most of the time the tools are kind of sort of easily accessible. So where the ingredients might be, you know, dug in the back of the fridge. So we're going to go ahead and just measure out some salt here. This is a 1/4 teaspoon, so I'm going to need 4 of these, again, because I'm doing 1.5 times. And then I'm going to add just a little bit more on top of that. Perfect. And we'll taste this when it comes time, and if we want to add some more and make it a little more eggy, we will. Just get a spoon out for that when it comes time. This is already starting to thicken and get warm. This is nice. This is what we're looking for. Just want to keep whisking it. And as you can see, it's starting to already, because things are starting to get emulsified. The oil is starting to get sort of captured by the starch and emulsified in. It's starting to look a little bit more bright and yellow, which is nice too. And this is almost boiling, which is great. Means we're almost done with it. It looks good. I mean, I'm already ready to put this on top of some poached eggs and call it a hollandaise. You know. I did write in the recipe notes you can use this as a sort of a hollandaise. If I was using this for hollandaise, I would probably put a little bit of extra salt in there, because that is a sauce. You want it to be very saucy, and probably a little bit more oil as well, just because we want it to be really rich and hearty, because hollandaise usually has butter mounted in it. Again, that's if you're trying to keep it vegan. If you're not caring about it being vegan, you just don't want to eat eggs for whatever reason, go ahead and just put some butter in here, and you know, whisk it as you put it in, and it will get nice and smooth. And it'll look and probably taste a lot like hollandaise. Hollandaise really just tastes like butter and fat anyway. So awesome. This is looking good. Almost at a full boil. Everything's looking nice and emulsified. I think it's going to be thick enough once it cools a little bit. I don't think I need to add any more cornstarch. And if I'm wrong, that's fine. It's still going to taste good. I will say this is only my second time doing this. I oftentimes will experiment and practice, or it's a recipe I've done before in a different way. I've never made this before. I've never actually made a beet tartare. I've made a lot of tartares in my time. I made tuna and steak and stuff, so the sauce is going to be very familiar for me. But I've never made it with beets before, which is crazy because I love beets. So this is going to be a fun sort of experiment for all of us. So yeah, this is looking really good. You can see when I stop, it starts to boil. That's perfect. That's what we want. I'm just going to go ahead and turn that off and get myself something to cool it in. We're going to go for this, and I'll grab a second just in case. Okay, cool. So we're going to go ahead and put that salt in there now while it's still warm. And that's going to help it dissolve faster. And some of you in the front row might already be able to smell that sulfur. That eggy, sort of yolky smell of a nice hard-boiled egg when you crack it open. That's what we're going for. The recipe where I kind of stole this from had people just dipping toast points in this, and that sounds honestly like a great idea. Every time I see this, it just kind of looks like a really nice dipping sauce. So that's pretty thick, and it'll hopefully get thicker. I'm just going to give it a try and make sure we get something resembling egg. Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, cool. That's delicious. I want to put that on everything. So that's a win. I'm going to thicken it a little bit, just so I could kind of tell that was a little bit flat. So I'm just going to put a little bit of cornstarch in this cup. I'm going to turn this back on. And I'm just going to put a little water in here. So we're making a slurry here. You generally don't want to add cornstarch to an already hot liquid. If you do that, it's going to cook. It's going to get clumpy. So you want to make a slurry. It's okay to put cornstarch in a cold liquid and then heat it up. You're not going to have a problem with that. But if you put cornstarch right into a hot liquid, you're just asking to have weird chunks. And because we are making an egg yolk here, we want to make sure that's nice and clear. If I was in a kitchen setting, I would, and I really, really needed to, I could do that, and then I could just strain it later, put it through a really fine sieve, and that would get all the clumps out. But I'm making a slurry instead, which is going to make our life a lot easier. And I just want this a little bit thicker so that it rests nicely on top of that egg when we get around to it. But I'm really excited for you guys to try this. It's blowing my mind. I'm so excited. I knew it was going to be good. Like, the internet wouldn't talk about black salt like this if it wasn't going to be good, but this is real good. I feel like you do this, you can put a little bit more seasoning in there, and really kind of make a very, very nice eggy sauce. And there's no eggs in here at all. It's literally just water and salt. We barely seasoned it. The nutritional yeast definitely sort of helps to bring it together. Yeah, and I can see this feels right now. It feels a little more thick, just the way it's moving in the pan. I think we're going to be in a good shape here. Just wait for it to do that bubble. Oh, I got to turn it up. Perfect. This is exciting. I love trying new things. That's part of why we started doing this. These series is for me to just sort of experiment and try out new things and let you guys do the same thing. You know, it's fun cooking, but it's even more fun when you cook something you've never done before and it comes out really, really successful. So it did lose a little bit nice bright yellow color, but I think it's going to turn out really good. It just looks good. It looks so good. All right, we'll put the rest in here. Really like these pans, by the way. I'm not, just in case anybody has induction burners at home. It doesn't have like a particular brand name, but it's a stoneware pan. It's non-stick, but it's not Teflon, so I can just do whatever I want, like use metal utensils on it. When this eventually gets really, really old, I might steal it, but with permission, we'll replace it first. But the beautiful thing about working here is I just get to use it whenever I want to. So, all right, awesome. That is our lovely egg sauce. It is not egg at all, but you can see the color is pretty good. It's a little bit browner than I was anticipating. I think if you wanted to, you could put some more turmeric in there, but I don't think it's going to be able to fight. A lot of that came from the salt itself. Why it's called black salt, it kind of has that color change. It's a little darker than a normal pink salt. So I'm just going to put this in the fridge to cool. You could eat it hot, like especially if you're doing it with toast. There's nothing wrong with that, or put it right over your poached eggs or whatever other sauce you might be needing. But because we're going to be eating this with a cold tartare, we do want something that is going to be, at least not piping hot. Room temperature will be fine. I'm just going to clean up a little over here, and we'll jump into the next phase, which is going to be making our dressing for the tartare. You want to make the dressing first so that the shallots have a chance to sort of marinate and meld and mellow more than anything else. Raw onion tends to be really, really, really intense, and so we don't want too much going on in there. That's going to make things unpleasant for us. So we're going to go ahead and cut up this shallot, and we're going to do what's called a brunoise, which I think is French for very, very tiny. I think it's got French for something else, but essentially it means very, very tiny. We want a dice that is as small as possible. We really don't want the shallot in there for texture. We want it for flavor. We want that sort of nice raw onion. It's kind of just a classic ingredient in tartares, so it's something we are not skipping. You are welcome to if you don't like raw onion or if it messes with your stomach. I know raw onion can be pretty intense for some people. Just don't put it in there, or use a pickled onion or something like that. Tartare classically has a lot of pickled ingredients in it. Today we're using cornichon and capers, but you can use pickled peppers. You can use pickled onion. You can use pickled basically anything that you like. Carrots would be good in there as well. Basically anything. Pickled, that vinegar, that acid is very important for cooking the meat, if there was meat in there. In this case, we're using beets, which are already cooked, but if there was meat, that's what that acid would be doing. It's cooking, it's killing bacteria, and it's also bringing a lot of flavor and intensity to something that's usually pretty fatty and flat. Beef, or that would be, So we're going to brunoise. You generally want a flat bottom. So if this was like an onion, for instance, I'd cut it in half so I could have that flat bottom. Shallots are really nice because they kind of are built for brunoising or for dicing. They already have a flat bottom most of the time, not always, but so we want the flat bottom down. What we're going to do is we're going to cut, we're essentially cutting the side of the onion right now. So we're going to cut this way to make our first cut small. If we just cut straight into the top and then try to dice, we get a decent sized pieces. They'd be pretty small, but this part right here, the sort of bendy part on the side, that would never really get cut up, and so we still have sort of long strips. And we don't want that at all. We want really, really nice, tiny, small dices. So we're going to start here, nice flat fingers. Notice how my fingers are sort of bent up, so there's like basically no way I can cut myself. Oh, and I already went a little too far through, but that's okay. And you're going to cut not all the way through, but just enough so that you can kind of prep this for cutting. And so we've got sort of little pieces right there. That one's a little bigger than I would have liked, but that's okay. That's where I slipped. So now that we've got those done, we can do our other way. Just like anytime you're cutting things small or dicing, you want to basically make planks, which is what we just done, but for ease of use, we've kept the root on so they don't go sliding all over the place. Then you want to make sticks, which is what I'm going to do right now by cutting the other way through the onion, or the shallot in this case. So we made planks. Whoop, it's got a little slippery. Now we're making sticks, and you can see this thing is basically just like a little flower. And then we're going to actually do our dice. And so now that you've got the planks and sticks, again, the root is helping us here to kind of keep them in one piece, but you'd stack them up like this, keep them nice and tight, and then you just run your knife along the end of the sticks and you get a really, really nice dice. And so we're going to do this again with the beets when we get them out as well. Just a little bit bigger. We don't really mind as much having them be kind of big, but we do want them fairly small so they don't slip and slide all over the place. In the recipe there, I believe it says that you can shred them. You can use either like a food processor to shred them, or you can use just a box grater. That's going to give you more of a texture like a ground beef. Beef tartare in that case is oftentimes made with ground beef instead of chopped beef. It's a very different texture. The meat is kind of, everything about it is not the same as a normal tartare. Tartare, for me at least, feels a lot like texture based. You want something that's kind of, that feels interesting in your mouth. It takes some time to chew and eat and experience all the different parts of it. Ground beef always just feels like a little weird, and not to mention the fact that ground beef generally has a lot more breeding ground for bacteria, whereas if you're cutting your own piece of meat at your home right before you eat, you know where that's been. If you're grounding your own meat, that's a whole other thing. But again, that's the beef side of things. We're talking about beets today, so we don't have to worry about that whatsoever. Experiment with the texture. Do something that works for you. If your tartare is slipping all over the place and it's hard to eat because it's not staying on your fork, try just shredding a couple beets and putting them in there. They might help as like a nice little glue to keep it together. So we're going to measure this because we really, really, really don't want too much onion. It's going to absolutely kind of just be an aggressive part of the flavor. And if we mess it up, we're all going to taste it later. So let's see. It is 2 tablespoons, which I think is going to be okay. We are going to double this first recipe because there's some people out there that I want to feed. And I always like making a little extra for the staff. So we're going to do 2 tablespoons, and then we're going to do 2 tablespoons again. And see, I messed up. Even with that good planning, there's still some nice long strips. And it happens, Luckily, I'm not a professional chef anymore. I'm just cooking for you guys. So, and a lot of those strips came from the root end because I didn't cut all the way through. That's where those pieces were still intact. Okay, cool. So we're just going to get as much of this little tiny pieces as we can. Perfect. The rest of that can be discarded if you were cooking, like a stir fry or something to go with this. Obviously, just keep that. Use it for a sauce or something like that. But today we just have tartare, so we are going to discard them. All right, so we are going to get some acid on this. We really want to let these cook. Acid's one of the best ways to cook things that are raw without using heat. And so we're going to get our lemon on there right now and let it start to meld. I'm going to use some lemon zest as well. I showed this, I think, last program for zesting lemons. This is a microplane. They're really, really fabulous. You can sort of go over the top like this if you want to, but for lemons especially, and any citrus, I like to pull instead. So you just sort of hold it in your hand and pull the microplane over the skin, and you get the zest right on the top. It's a lot easier than trying to do it the other way. Grating over something works really good for things like ginger, garlic, anything like a little bit harder, a little bit more together, and generally something smaller. Something like nutmeg would work really well for that as well. But anything like this with just like a lot of surface area to cover, I do find that the pull method tends to work a little bit better. So we're just going to pop all that zest in there. And I did roll the lemon there, just get the juices flowing. And we're going to go ahead and take a look. Not many seeds in here. This is great. We are going to measure this just in case, but I have a feeling it's going to use this entire lemon. Yeah, I might even have wanted more than one lemon. It's okay. We've got some vinegar to use if we need to. I think this will be perfect. Crazy. I somehow got a seedless lemon. That's the rarity. I think this is going to be just... Oh, there's a seed. Nice. All I had to do was say something. The universe is listening. All right, perfect. So that's basically exactly 2 tablespoons. Where are you at, seed? Get out there. Perfect. Okay, so we've got our 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in there. Just going to give that a quick little shaky shake. Mix it around. Let that onion start to simmer and settle and get cooked. That's what we want. We want a kind of nice little pickle basically going on in there. And then we're just going to keep adding the rest of our ingredients. We can go right down from the top. So we've got the shallots. We have capers and cornichon next. These are also acidic, so they're going to help to add to that pickling process. And we are going to want 2 tablespoons of each. So we're just going to go through here I'm going to kind of just like eyeball about 4 tablespoons. It might be a good amount of these cornichon. Cornichon is like one of the most classic tartare ingredients. Like the original tartare is said to have been basically just cornichons and beef mixed together, a little bit of the liquid and some olive oil, and call it a day. Probably some onions too, because there are little cocktail onions in here. So they're very fun. The flavor is very particular. If you've never had a cornichon before, I highly suggest getting some and having them either with a Bloody Mary or just by themselves. They're really, really fun, and they don't taste like normal pickles at all. And not only is that because they're a completely different sort of size cucumber, but the way that the brine that they use is just it's just very, very unique. It's not something you'll ever have anywhere except for in a cornichon. So again, what I'm doing here is I'm planking these, and then I'm cutting them into sticks because we want these to be a nice dice. And if I can, you want to sort of leave your planks stacked up so that they are easier to cut into sticks when you get to that stage. And then we're just stacking them up in a nice stack over there. I don't know if they make cornichon relish, but I have a feeling that would be really, really useful for this recipe. And also, like, maybe a part of marketing. If anybody's watching this on YouTube, in like a couple months from now, make cornichon relish. You can have my idea. It's totally fine. Just making tartares a lot easier, You can also put these in a food processor if you have one. Chop them up that way. Or if you've got one of those old school slap chops, I don't know if anybody remember those things. It would work really good in that. Those things are crazy. I remember watching people try and like cut onions with that. It's just it felt very unsafe. But hey, so it goes. I've used a mandolin without a guard plenty of times, and that's probably one of the most dangerous kitchen equipment. Mandolin is a slicer, the one where you sort of run your hand like that. For those of you who don't know, it's incredibly dangerous. I cut myself on one once when I was younger, and never again. It only takes one time with that thing to just respect the heck out of it. All right, so I have a feeling this is going to be 4 tablespoons, maybe a little short, but we'll see. So good. It's like a lot of self-control right now to not just eat like 4 of these as I'm doing this. But if you're at home making this, please, please, please snack in between. They're so very tasty and a lot of fun to just munch on. So we're just going to do the same thing. Get a nice little Brunoise-sized dice. We really want as small as possible here because we are kind of making a dressing. If you think about maybe an old school Italian dressing with all the little pieces swimming around in it, that's kind of what we're going for. We want something that's going to be big enough to see, but not so big that it becomes sort of the star attraction of our dish. So that's 1, 2, 3, perfect. That's what I'm talking about. It's almost like I've cooked before. Okay. So now you would normally not recommend using your knife to scrape your board like that. I don't know if anybody noticed or if anybody made a face when I did that, but I try usually if I'm going to swipe my knife to more sort of scoop and not use this part because you will just dull your knife pretty quickly. But you kind of scoop with it, it tends to actually not be much of a problem. But it's a bad habit I still haven't gotten rid of from just being I guess just a little bit lazy. All right, so capers are next. Capers are really fun. Again, if you've not tried them before, they're really, really tasty. They're very good in things like lox, with lox rather. They're very, very intense. They're incredibly good in sauces as a really nice sort of flavoring ingredient. Again, as a pickled things go, they're very unique. Much like cornichons, they just kind of are their own thing. And they're really fun too because they're actually little flower buds. That's what they are. I learned that pretty recently actually. I always thought they were a vegetable basically, which I guess in a way a flower bud is kind of like a vegetable. Most vegetables come from flowers, so okay, cool. I think I got most of the liquid away. Oh, nope, still something there. I'm going to drain the liquid because we really don't want, the pickle liquid's very, very intense, and we want the capers flavor, but we don't want, we're making our own dressing right now, so we don't want to just steal from the capers. But you can do that too if you're short on time or if you just really, really like capers. So I'm just going to measure these beforehand, and then I'm just going to dice them up so that we get more of their flavor into the dish. If you really like capers, you could literally just take one of these, mix it with a pound of beef, and call it a day. That's going to be a really good tartare as well. Maybe a little bit of oil in there as well. But apart from that, you don't need much more, and they're just so good. Chicken piccata is another classic that has capers in it, and that's just lemon and capers. Really, really delicious. Very nice with pasta. So I'm just going to run my knife over this a little bit, and then I'm actually just going to crush them with my knife as well. We really want these to get all of their sort of tasty bits out into the sauce. We don't want the, we're not going to be sad about a little pop from some capers, and you can definitely put capers in there whole, but I always like them chopped up more. Their flavor tends to sort of go throughout the dish better, and you still will occasionally get a pop, but it's not like the focus. All right, perfect. Just put all those in there as well. This is gonna be so good, guys. Okay, I'm just gonna rinse this off a little bit because we're getting a little dirty over here. Okay, let's see what's next. I have not memorized this recipe. Usually when I make tartare, I'm a little bit more like no measurement, just kind of like off the cuff. I'm gonna get a little water. I'm talking too much. Okay, perfect. Wash my hands. Okay, perfect. So, back to the list. Mustard. So, we have, I don't have Dijon today, but that's going to be okay because we are using miso in this. Dijon has that same sort of like deep, savory flavor that we're looking for, but yellow mustard is going to be fine for this. Again, we want some acid. That's like our big goal here with this. Dijon's really nice because it's just deeper, but this is going to be totally fine. And so we're going to use 2 tablespoons. And then white miso. All right. So white miso is absolutely fabulous. If you haven't had it before, it comes in a lot of different forms. You can get it as a paste. You can get it with like chunks of nut in there. You can get it with chunks of bean in there. It's usually made with white beans. Excuse me. It's a fermented product, and its flavor is amazing. It's alive, usually. I think this one is not. This one has been sterilized, but it's usually alive when you buy it. So you don't want to put it in boiling water. You want to get your like miso soup really hot, let it cool down a bit, and then put the paste in there and stir it in. That way it sort of blooms and comes back alive. It's really, really good for your gut. The flavor is absolutely amazing. And white miso is probably my favorite. It's just a little bit sweet. And so this, I got one at the grocery store. What is big tickle. Okay, so I got this one at the grocery store. I do like the paste better, but it's kind of hard to find around here, so I usually just get this when I need it. But it brings back so many memories for me. It's what I used to use for my tuna tartares when I worked at Beach Road. And so every time I think about miso, I kind of think about that delicious. That was just miso and lime juice. We're using lemon today, of course. And so we're going to pop in there with some miso. This one's really nice, and the reason I got it is because you can pour it. It measures a lot easier. Works really, really good for soup. And it adds a little bit of extra liquid in here, which is something we want. So again, I believe it was 1 tablespoon, so we're going to use 2 tablespoons because we are doubling this. And that's just, you won't be sad having this in your house anytime you're sick. Put a little carrots and onion and garlic and some water, cook them till they're soft, and put that in there, and you'll feel better in no time. Miso is like the ultimate. A little bit of olive oil. We are using olive oil here because we care about the flavor. We want it to taste thick. We want it to taste nice. And we have a lot of pickles in there that are going to go really, really well with this flavor. So we're going to do, I think it's 4 tablespoons because we're doubling. Yep. Perfect. And, the best olive oil you can get, basically, this is just it's called Smooth, which I believe is because it's a low acidity. It's kind of funny. I don't know if anybody knows, but olive oils too also have an acidity rating, much like vinegars that you usually eat them with. Some cultures or some countries. I don't know what's going on here. I was doing great. Must have talked about something spicy. And so some places, depending on the growing region, will have less acidic. So like Portuguese olive oil is very, very low in acidity, but their vinegar is very high in acidity to sort of counteract that. A lot of times you've got, this one's probably Italian, which is usually fairly acidic, but this is called smooth, which I'm assuming means that they have either taken that acid out or used a very specific olive to make it. All right, let's keep going down this list. We've got shallots, we've got capers, we got cornichon, we got dijon. We have white miso, olive oil, lemon juice, and lemon zest were already in there. And so we just need chives. I couldn't find fresh chives, which I'm very sad about. They make freeze-dried chives, but they're like $1 million, so I just got dry chives. They're going to work great. We've got plenty of liquid in here to rehydrate them. At the end of the day, they're a decent amount of the flavoring of this sauce, but really they're there because they look amazing. When we plate this, you're going to see little bits of green specks in there. That's the chives just doing their job of being great. They're one of like the most classic things to use as a garnish in fancy kitchens because they just make everything look cool, and they taste really good. They're not super intense as far as like the onion flavor, like a raw onion might be. They've got that nice herbiness to them, but they also just look really cool. So, but again, I'm using dried, which is going to be totally fine. Nobody's going to know. And so we want 2 tablespoons. So this is a half tablespoon. We're going to do this 8 times because we are doubling this. So fresh would be better. I would definitely use fresh. And if I was doing fresh, I'd tell you about all the times I cut chives in the kitchen and got them thrown out because I didn't cut them right. When you're in really fancy spots especially, you want everything to look incredible. And so if you cut your chives a little bit off, they're not all the same size, some of the real intense chefs will just toss the whole prep bin. Okay, sweet. I think that's everything. I didn't get parsley because I didn't want to buy a whole bunch and then use this tiny little bit. If you have parsley at home, use it definitely. But I didn't get it just because I didn't want to waste a whole bunch of parsley, and I know nobody around here was going to use it. So this is our sauce. You can make this ahead of time. You can freeze it. You can just keep it in your fridge and put it on toast. It's amazing. It's going to be good in basically everything. It's a little mustardy, a lot of vinegar, some nice shallots and herbs in there. I mean, it smells so good. It's just going to be good on everything. It's a bunch of flavors all sort of melded in one. It is going to be perfect. So there's our nice sauce. We're just going to let that chill and hang out. About 10 minutes is what you want to let that sit for. That's mainly for the onions, but obviously now that we've got everything in there, we do want everything to start to meld and become one. I don't think we're going to need anything else. I'm just going to cut up the beets, and then we're basically going to be ready to go. So we are going to crack these open. They do make a lot of different types of canned beets. I just got the normal ones because, first off, they were cheap, but also I think these are going to be decent sized. If you're buying, farm beets, they're going to probably be pretty nice and big, so you only need like 1 or 2 beets probably. But you're going to watch me cut these up and be like, why did you get such small beets? And it's just what they got, It's hard to find big beets that are pre-cooked. And again, cooking them yourself can be decent, but trying to do it here was just not an option. So we skipped it for the ease of use. I'm going to drain all the liquid off of here. The liquid is really good. It's pretty tasty. A lot of people will eat it with the liquid. It's just, it's got all their sort of their leavings, their juice, and it's very tasty. It's seasoned as well. These are seasoned beets, so there's a little bit of salt in there, which is part of why I didn't add any extra salt to that. Not like it needs it. It's got plenty from the pickles. But classically, you would add some extra salt and maybe some pepper into your dressing, or when you go to actually dress the beets, you'd add some in there, just because salt is delicious and it makes everything sort of taste really good together. But these are already salted, so I figured we didn't need any extra. But I'm going to drain the liquid off because we don't really want any more. We don't want any more liquid in this. This is the perfect amount. All right, let's get this drained. Hopefully, I don't get it all over myself. I actually brought my my sweatshirt in today. I'm going to put that on just in case. It's going to be my apron. Let's get that done right now before I ruin my shirt. This is the one time you're going to get to see me in camo while I'm cooking. I always take this off when I'm at home, but man, I could not find my normal cooking shirt, which is kind of dark. It had stains really well. So I was just like, I just got to go to work today. So I brought my sweatshirt in to protect me from the beets. Can you guys see me, or am I just a bunch of hands? Camo jokes are always a winner. I love when people make them about me. They're just like, I can't see you, man. Where are you? It's just so much fun. This is my dad's coat, actually, too, which makes it even more special. All right, beautiful. Okay, so these beets they're decent size. It's not ideal. We'll probably won't cut them if I had like a food processor right now, I'd just drop these in there and let it do its work. I would definitely be a full proponent for not dicing them, but we're going to dice them just because we can. Okay, so I'm actually going to make things a little easier for me. Whenever you're working out of containers like this, if you can, consolidate everything. It's just going to make your life a lot easier because you'll be able to see what you're working on. You'll see how much you have and when you're going to be done. And it makes it easier to pick the next one. So I just dumped all our beets out so I know where I'm at. I can sort of pick and choose my beets as we cut. And we're just going to hopefully do these pretty quick and not bore you guys forever. So standard business, we are going to plank these. Get over here. And I'm just going to start stacking them up. And I like to work in sort of batches. This is how I do my potatoes too, if I'm ever making like hash browns or something like that. I'll make a bunch of stacks and then I'll go back and do the same thing over and over again. Your brain likes repetition, so if you can repeat processes over and over again, you'll get faster at them. So for this case, I'm planking as much as I can. I'm making little piles for later. You want them to be safe, which is why I'm leaving this little bit over here because I want to make sure those bottoms are nice and flat. So just keep making piles. And you can cut the tops off if you want to. They're perfectly edible, especially in a canned beet like this. They've been cooked for a good while, so there's no reason why they are going to be fibrous or anything like that. If you don't like them, though, by all means, take them off. The connective tissues of vegetables tend to be the parts where the most nutrients are stored, so I always like keeping roots and such on. I mean, in this case, we're literally eating a root, so, it's almost not really, it's kind of crazy to not leave the root on because it is a root. But I always like, carrots as well. I'll leave the tops on as long as, nobody's complaining. You're getting more nutrients, so it's well worth the extra chewing. And your body's not going to really notice unless you're paying attention that you've got a little extra roughage in there. So these are definitely smaller than I thought they were going to be. Let's just see. Oh, they're really good, though. Ooh, these were well worth it. Oh, they're so beety. Oh, I love beets so much. So you obviously have to like beets to like this dish. If you don't like beets, I'm sorry. They'll be toast. But I would hope you all knew this was about beets before you came here. But if not, listen, I can find some cheese in the fridge too. We'll make it work, okay? I want everybody to have at least a snack today. So they're going to be really good. You're not going to even recognize them as beets when we're done. They're going to look like beets, but the flavor is going to be out of this world. These two together just make such a nice little companion. And so you've got a lot of different options for dressing when you're doing tartares. And beets, this is at the end of the day, we're calling it a tartare because it's fun, but it's really a beet salad. And there's nothing wrong with sort of modifying this with that in mind and moving into something that you might like more. If you really, really like the lemon, but you're not here for the pickles, just get rid of it. Get rid of the pickles, that is. Make it a more lemon-centric thing. Put a little more olive oil in there, maybe some sugar, make a nice sort of like sweet lemon vinaigrette, maybe even like emulsify it, really, really whisk it as you drain the oil in there. That'll make a really nice, smooth, sort of bright yellow dressing, and just have it with a little bit like feta or something. Nobody's going to stop you from doing that. This is, just obviously a base. We're trying to go for a really, really nice tartare-like appearance, but we don't have to stay. I'm obviously using the biggest ones first, delaying my suffering until later. But I think we're going to stop right there, and we're going to start dicing these now. So let's see. We'll go this way. I'm just sort of planning my where I'm going to land. So I'm going to start on the left side here. I'm going to put my sort of pile of dice over there. So we've got our sticks, and then. Or rather, we have our planks, and now I have my sticks. I'm just holding these together with my fingers so they don't fall apart. It just makes your life a lot easier if you can keep them together with their originals. The items like to sort of, whatever you're cutting likes to stay together if possible. And if you can do that, it just makes your life easier when you get to the actual dice stage of this process. Otherwise, you just got pieces everywhere, and you're cutting, one stick at a time, and it's just not not very ideal. So perfect. So we've got some really nice dice there. I think that's just about the right size. We can go a little smaller if we want to. Gonna be good. They're so soft. They're actually like really easy to cut, which is nice. And that's how you know you've cooked your beets enough too. If they're hard to cut, they're probably not cooked enough. But that could also be nice for some nice texture. Let's see today. Yeah, good, cool. Losing track of myself over here. Beautiful. So that sound right there, that's what you don't want when you're scraping your board. But I just can't stop myself. It's like I don't know, something from my childhood is just like, this is the way to do it. So I think I'm going to switch it up and do, just because I'm running out of space on this board, should use the bigger cutting board, honestly. I'm going to switch it up, and I'm going to stick them and dice them at the same time, just so I can sort of keep adding to this pile over here. Does anybody have any questions, by the way, while we're doing this? This is a good time to like pop out. It doesn't have to be about beets, doesn't have to be about tartare. I am pretty heavy on the knowledge of food, so I'm here to help you. Maybe you were cooking something, you're like, man, what happened, Maybe we can doctor that together, figure out what's going on.
Where did you go to school?
Where did I go to school? Oh, good question. I actually went to school down in New Orleans at Tulane. I didn't go to school for food, though. I went to school for, originally I was a computer engineer, but I was actually down at Tulane during Hurricane Katrina. And when we got back from Katrina, they actually had gotten rid of a large portion of the engineering department, including computer engineering, civil engineering, and mechanical engineering, which is like, I can understand computer engineering, sure, but civil engineering and mechanical, like, you just had a giant hurricane. You think they might want those things? Anyways, I wasn't there to question. I just, I ended up graduating with a math and economics degree, which I'm obviously using right now. That's why I cut my beets like this, because I'm trying to save time, Leo, what's up, dude? You got a question? What can I do for you?
Do you need a certain knife to cut beets or what?
I like a sharp knife. Honestly, the biggest, I like a nice big knife like this. I'm a 10-inch or 8+ knife. I really don't like short knives. I think it's because my hands are so big. But you want something that's really, really sharp. That's what's helping this sort of go through like this. But you do want something like a chef's knife or a, what's it called? Not a chinois. That's one of those little like boxy knives that are very good for dicing. You want something that's good for dicing. You don't want something that has like a big curve, because we are trying to just do like, straight cuts through this and not rock chopping. Rock chopping is really, really useful for certain vegetables, but for dicing, it's not really where you want to be. That's better for a little bit more inaccurate cuts. All right, we're gonna get through this, I promise. I might just take out a potato masher for the rest of it,
Well, how did you learn how to cook?
By eating. Yeah, I've always loved food. My mom, who is here today, can attest to that. When we were younger, we always used to cook together. We'd make pancakes. That was one of our big sort of cooking meals. And I think it just sort of developed from there. I've always wanted to eat, and it's really empowering to be able to say, I'm hungry, I'm going to make myself X, and be able to succeed. There definitely like sort of a period in my cooking history where I would really mess things up. I would make food that was not exactly edible, and I just put a bunch of ketchup on it and call it a day. I was basically just eating ketchup, which is fine. I do love ketchup. I eat a lot less of it today than I used to, mainly because my cooking has gotten better. But I just a lot of practice and a lot of sort of desire. I'll occasionally look up a recipe, but most of the time when I'm looking things up with food, I'm looking up technical stuff. I need to know, how many eggs to make a good pasta, or how long to let something rise, because there's certain things you just can't figure out on your own. You do have to have some help. You could figure them out, but again, I don't like wasting food, so I'm usually not much to experiment much if I think that the end product might be absolutely horrible. There's only so much ketchup in the world, so but yeah, that's really how I learned how to cook. Is just desiring certain types of food, and then learning how to cook them either through horribly messing up, or looking it up, or a lot of my cooking experience really was refined when I was working locally at really fancy restaurants. You go there, you have a chef that comes in, he says, I need you to cook this dish. He's going to show you how to cook it, because you're going to have to cook it 800 times in the next couple weeks. And so once you learn how to cook it, it just doesn't go anywhere. It stays with you, and you get to bring that into other parts of your life. So sort of as another answer, cooking for people has been very, very helpful as well, and sort of experimenting on them. And then when we started doing this again, we started out with the dough series, and I will tell you right now, I am not, or rather I should say I was not a dough person. I don't really like dealing with doughs. Flour is always so messy; it gets everywhere. It's hard to clean. But man, that program changed me. I used dough all the time. I made pasta all the time. I just made lasagna for my mom's birthday, actually. And that was actually really fun because that was bringing in a lot of different things that I learned here at the library cooking for you all. I used a vegan cheese that was made from hazelnuts that I had done here a couple of months ago for one of these programs. And just, the pasta was, again, from a pasta program we had done. So, the answer is kind of multifaceted. I taught myself because I wanted to eat, and I continue to learn because other people want to eat. And I can't get enough of it. I'm constantly wanting to try something new. It helps a lot that I don't mind eating basically everything. If you aren't an exploratory eater, that is definitely an easy path to learning more about food and sort of how to cook it. I've eaten everything from dragonflies now to just the basic hamburger, but and it's all good. It's all different. It's all unique. It all has its place. And it's all just really exciting. Food's great. We're good. We're almost done, guys. I promise.
What are beets rich in?
Beets have a lot of iron, I believe. Lots and lots of sugar. They are essentially most of the sugar production in the United States is actually from beets. We have a white beet variety, which is very, very, very high in sugar. It's sort of been designed for that. But I think a lot of Domino's sugar is white beet sugar, and it's tasty. But so lots and lots of sugar. That's kind of their main ingredient. They are a lot of roots have sugar in them too. That's kind of their main sort of purpose in life is to hold that that nutrient in a very easy to use location, so that if the plant needs it later, it can go ahead and access it. But us, as humans, we're like, oh great, you're storing all this food for us to eat, and it works out kind of nice in the end. But iron, 100%. There's a lot of iron in there. Basically, anything that's red usually has some amount of iron. They're very good for your blood levels. So I'm assuming there's other sort of blood-related chemicals in there. But
not good for you. They're kidney stones.
You get kidney stones from them?
Yeah, they're not. If you have kidney stones.
Oh, really?
Not
Interesting.
A good thing to have.
Oh, okay. And I wonder if that's something to do with like maybe like a diuretic property or something like that of them. I know they're very good for your heart, but generally a lot of things that are good for your heart are not good for your kidneys, because that's kind of where your blood gets filtered. And so if you're doing something to your blood or taking bad things out of your blood, your kidneys are usually the ones who are helping you out there. So it reminds me, I got to go get my kidneys tested. Thanks. That's actually really important. I'm going to go do that tomorrow morning. Nice. That's multitasking right there. But yeah, kidneys can be sort of a byproduct victim of eating things that are healthy for your heart, because they do all that hard filtering. Them in the liver are beastly little guys. They do a lot of work for us. But yeah, I do know that iron, and I'm sure there's others. It's not something I've actually really looked that much into. I just know that I like them and I eat them a lot. But it's good to know that they are not necessarily good for you if you have kidney stones or any kidney problems. I'll have to do some more fact checking on that, because now I'm interested and I wish I had done more research. We are like so close, guys. Thank you for being patient with me. Hopefully it's exciting to watch me cut these up. Ooh, I missed one.
Yes, because I'm one of the ones that make a total mess.
Yeah, exactly. I chose this cutting board as a challenge. That was really what I was doing. But hopefully, also you're able to sort of watch what I'm doing. I'm not blocking too much with my hand. As far as the process here, when you're working in a big kitchen, especially, we do this all day. Prep cooking is like an entire position in and of itself. You're just spending your day with vegetables over and over and over, doing the exact same thing, and finding out ways to do that is not only efficient but also safe and not super messy. Can be really, really nice. It can make the day feel a little bit more fun when you're like, ooh, I get to do that thing that I'm really good at, or I developed a really great method for. And so again, just going over the process of planks, sticks, dice, and doing this over and over again. If I didn't have that method, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. I guess I'd probably just have put these all out on the cutting board and started going crazy on them. And that's a legit way to chop beef. Oh, Leo, what's up, man?
Do you need to use a certain kind of beet or what?
Awesome. That's a really good question. So there are a bunch of different kinds of beets. There's red beets, which is what these are. There's chigoga, I think, is a new one. There's candy stripe and all sorts of others. And the answer is no. You do not need to use a particular type of beet. We're using a red beet today because we're going for a sort of beef look. We want that nice red, like a ground or like a chopped beef might have. But for, if we're treating this more like a beet salad and not like a look-alike, 100%, you do not need any particular beet. You can use anything from golden beets to pink beets to just classic reds like this. So any beet will do, and you can even mix them up and make it really, really pretty and sort of almost like a confetti tartare. I think that would actually be a lot of fun. But you'd have to cook the beets yourself for sure for that. I don't think you can find a lot of other beets pre-cooked just because they're not grown in very high quantities. But here at our local farms, I know we grow, I think, at least 3 different types of beets and maybe even more. And we've got golden, the chigoga, or I think also known as candy stripe, which are the ones that are sort of red and white on the inside. And then we have the normal standard red beet. All right, the end is in sight, friends. The end is in sight, which also means we're very close to being able to eat. So I hope you guys are ready for that.
Chris,
Yes.
What's a sous chef do?
A sous chef, awesome. So depending on the size of the kitchen, sous chefs have a lot of different jobs. In general, a sous chef would be the person to go to, kind of like an assistant manager. They're the one who is going to be, in general, doing all of the work. The chef is the one who's going to make the menu. The sous chef is the one who's usually going to execute it. The chef's going to be there, obviously, because he's got to make sure his products are the way he wants them. But the sous chef's probably the one cooking a lot of the hard, complex dishes. He's the one training everybody what to do. And a lot of times in a lot of kitchens, the sous chef is also the one who's in charge of all the prep cooks. If you don't, they're like sort of the manager of the cooks, whereas the chef is the manager of the menu. And so, but it depends on the size of your kitchen. Some chefs are just 2 chefs, and they still call it the sous, but realistically, they're basically just chefs. They're not really like that sort of nomenclature isn't necessary. Sous chef becomes a little bit more important when you get into like 40, 50 person kitchens where you've got multiple sous chefs, and one of them is in charge of garde-manger or the garden. One of them is in charge of the saute dish or depending on the different locations, you might have grill or fry later, whatever sort of situation you have. You might have one sous chef for each location in your restaurant, and they're responsible for training everybody who uses that location, because you might have a 40-bay fry later in some of the really big commercial kitchens that exist out there. So their job is kind of everything. They tend to do a lot of everything, which is great. The chef's job tends to be very focused. They make the dishes, they make the menu, and without them, you could cook a bunch of stuff, but you're just basically just kind of stealing stuff from other restaurants at that point. So yeah, hopefully that made sense as far as an answer. Sous chefs are where it's at. If you have a chef friend, that's awesome. If you have a sous chef friend, that's even better.
This is an off-the-wall question, but for a quiche, what's your favorite recipe?
Oh, sure.
Combination between with egg and the cream, and how many eggs? How much cream?
Cool. Okay. Well, I have an off-the-wall answer first. So for eggs and quiche, I am a low cream person. I'm a high egg, low cream. I like it to be meaty and thick. So I don't use a lot of milk in my eyes, or I use milk instead of cream most of the time. I don't really mix a lot in with my eggs. I tend to be, in that way, I guess I'm more of like a frittata person than a quiche person, because I really like the basic eggs with not too much milk in them. But as to flavor, my absolute favorite quiche of all time is Insane. I came up with it while I was working at Morning Glory on accident, and it's a trip. So you take what's that Swiss cheese? Jarlsberg, and you take shredded Jarlsberg. You put it in the bottom of the quiche pan, and then you literally take like half a jar, so it'd be 4 ounces of pickled, not pickled. What are we getting at here? Hot pepper jelly. You take hot pepper jelly, like a sweet one, like one of those, not like a spicy one, a nice sweet one. You take half a can of that, and you put it over the top of the cheese, and then you put your egg mixture on top. So in this case, for me, it would probably be, for one quiche, I think it was, It's 6 eggs and a cup of milk, maybe? I could be remembering that wrong, but you put your quiche, whatever liquid you've decided to use for your quiche, you put that on top, and then you bake it. And what happens, and it's so crazy, I didn't expect this to happen the first time I did it. I really expected something totally different to come out of the oven. But what happens is the hot pepper jelly liquefies as it gets hot, and it actually like forms a protective barrier around the cheese and ends up pickling the cheese. And so you end up with this like hot pepper jelly pickled cheese. The cheese doesn't melt; it like turns into like almost like a meat, like a shredded meat or something. It's crazy. And then you've got the egg on top, and some of the cheese like floats up and melts on the top, but most of it gets just this like crazy pickled crust. I don't even know. It's almost like a jammy egg. It's so insane. Anyway, so that's my favorite quiche. It is not something that I have been able to recreate recently. I think something to do with the ovens. In times I've tried it in the past, my oven I don't think is powerful enough, and so it does kind of just like the cheese melts. It doesn't do the same thing, but with like high-powered convection ovens, it's just a really fun treat. It's almost like candy, like a candy quiche, but it's it's savory. So, but yeah, I'm a less cream for my quiche, 100%. I like a lot more egg, and if I do anything creamy, I do usually use milk instead of cream. Leah, what's up, dude?
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
One is, do you need a certain kind of oven or what?
For quiche or for the beets?
For this recipe.
For this, you could just buy the beets cooked like I'm doing, and you wouldn't need an oven at all. You just need the stove to cook the eggs. Okay, guys, we are done. I finally did it. Woo! Nice. I gotta say, I was anticipating those beets being just a little bit bigger. Oh yeah, your second question. Sorry. What's up, Leo? Second question.
Do you need like a certain kind of bowl?
A certain kind of bowl?
Yeah.
Just a big one. I like deep bowls like this, as opposed to shallow bowls. Shallow bowls are good for like tossing dressing and stuff. But I like a deep bowl for this, like this, because I just don't want any of it to spill. So what I'll do is I'll put the dressing in there, and then I'll go from the bottom, and I'll stir up like this, and that's going to be a really good way. So we've got our beets in here. I'm just going to stir these up a little bit and see if I have any pieces that I messed up with cutting. That looks pretty good. I think they're going to be good. They're already kind of sticking together, which is nice. When we put the dressing in there, I think that'll get even more cohesive and more together. So that's it. We've got our dressing done. We've got our beets done. We're going to put them together, and we're going to hope everything turns out okay. I think it's going to turn out okay. And you always want to dress it right before you serve it. This isn't going to be bad. Again, with beets, it's really not going to be a problem if you dress it beforehand. But if this was meat, I would not want to dress this much before I served it, because that acid will start to cook the beef, will start to break it down. If it sits for too long, it gets a little bit pasty. It almost gets overcooked. And that's not something you want at all. So absolutely lovely. We're just going to mix this up, get it all together. I might end up seasoning this a little bit more, a little bit extra salt. We're just going to see what this tastes like once it's done. But it's starting to look perfect. Look like what we want. Oh, yeah. The beets are getting nice and glistening, and they're starting to sort of, that sound, I don't know if you guys can hear that, like, see if I can. I love the sound. I'm trying to get the sound for anybody who's watching this on YouTube later. It's kind of like, it's like sticky. Anyway, I don't know how else to describe it, but but that means that it's getting tacky. It means it's getting sticky. We want that. We want them to be sort of sticky, so that when we go to plate this, they all stay together. So classically, like if I was in a fancy restaurant, I would want to get these in a mold. I'd have like a little baking mold, and I put it in there, and I push it down and take it out. Depending on my chef, some chefs hate that. Some chefs don't like molds. They'd want me to mound it up and make it look natural. But either way, I'd want to mound it in some way. I'd want to get height. I'd want to get something that looks, geometrically pleasing. And so you want that tackiness to do that. And if it doesn't have that tackiness, then this looks really nice. Okay, awesome. Let's just get another spoon over here. Make sure I'm not poisoning you all. Oh, wow.
You just want to try.
It's good, guys. It's good. We're doing fine. Whew. All right. So let me go get my egg, and we'll do a little bit of plating here, and then you guys can start coming up to eat. So I'm gonna let you guys put the egg on yourselves. I think I have a little doodle here. Maybe not. Thought I had a little tiny ladle. Where did you go? I'm gonna let you guys put the egg on yourself just because I don't want you to have to eat it if you don't want to. So it's a little bit chunky. As you can see, that's kind of what we want. We want it to be sort of voluminous as well. We want it to hold up. Oh God, it smells so good. I'm just gonna kind of break this up a little bit so it's not too chunky. But yeah, this is looking good. Okay, so if you like the egg, I'm actually just gonna leave this spoon in here. Just what I do is I'm gonna put the tartare on some little toasts for you guys, and I would just take a little bit of egg and just plop a little bit right on top of each of the toasts. But only do that if you want to. It's very intense. It's kind of sulfury, and if you want to, just put a little on the side. You can always dip it. I'll put it a spare toast if you want to just try the egg by itself. So that's the egg. That's gonna be self-serve for those of you who want to experiment with it. Otherwise, I'm gonna get some plates together here, and we're gonna start dishing this out. I guess I don't need this. What I should use is my tablespoon. Okay, I think we're safe. I'm going to take this off. I'm officially out of the beet danger zone. Okay, lovely. Get some dry hands. And we'll start plating this up. So I think there's enough that everybody can have at least two. We'll start with that, and then if there's still more left over, we will go further. Let's see who's here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Perfect. Awesome. Let's see this back for now. Cool. So I got whole wheat and I got normal. I'm going to give you a little bit of both so you can just sort of try everything. I think there's actually enough for 2 per. So I'll mount these nice and high and I'll leave 2 of them empty so that you guys can sort of use them like little chips and sort of scrape off whatever you'd like. Or, you know, put some extra egg on there if you want to.
How would this be on a crepe?
On a crepe?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that'd be great.
See?
I mean, so I
Why not?
yeah, I think you'd like want to like wrap it up for sure. I feel like I'd want a little something else in there just because it's gonna be a little slippy. Like it's gonna try and like slip out the bottom of the crepe. I feel like, but I mean, I think it'd be great in a crepe. I love crepes in general. That's pretty much always going to be a win for me. Another thing that I just learned how to cook a lot better, I always used to sort of avoid batters as well, but we did our batter series recently, and crepes was one of them, and that was fabulous. Okay. So I'm going to start plating, and then I'm just going to put them out, and you guys can just start coming up. Usually I do back to front, but everything's done at the same time, but I think back to front probably still makes sense, so let's just go ahead and do that. Again, feel free to just take this whole thing in your mouth at once, but it's going to be something that sort of falls off, and so you can use that with your sort of empty chip there. All right, so I'm probably rushing a little too much here, but you get the idea. Maybe I'll try and do one that's like really, really good. So if I was in a restaurant, I'd definitely sort of, yeah, go for it. I would probably have like a separate tool here, or I'd like have a particular, have like an ice cream scoop that I was using. If I was, if this was what I had decided for plating, have a little tiny ice cream scoop and I'd pop it on each one. I think that would work really, really good. But in this situation, we're just kind of, we're improvising. If anybody wants a fork too, I can get them. Probably just pops them out. Should be able to just kind of house it in one go, but just in case, we do have some forks here. All right, don't be bashful, guys. Anybody who wants to, come on up. And again, remember, if you want to, you're welcome to take some of the black salt home with you. I've got some right here and some bags. I'll get you a little spoon to try.
Beautiful. Look at that.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
It's so much greener than I expected.
Yeah. I think the black salt kind of like changed the color a little bit. I was looking at the videos online and it was all very, very yellow, so that was kind of a surprise for me as well.
Great.
Yeah, but I mean, it tastes really good. It's a mind experience going eating that. Thank you.
Where do you put this?
You can put it either on the toast if you want, or just right on the top of the tartare. It's designed to be on top of the tartare as like a little bit of egg. Usually, you put a little egg yolk in your tartare. So.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, of course. How'd I do, everybody? Is it good?
Yummy.
Enjoying yourselves?
Yummy, yummy, yummy.
So you can obviously modify this dressing, add more, take out things that you like or don't like. It's all about sort of your own preference.
Okay.
And you can also just mix the egg right in there too. You don't have to use it as a garnish on top. A lot of times tartare recipes will have egg in them, so that's totally an option.
It's scary looking.
Yeah, the egg is a unique one for sure, but man, is it good. I'm fully like a convert on this salt and its use as a sauce. It's that is a really, really nice sauce. I think it'd go great and there's so many different things. Of course.
So now I get the sulfur small.
Yeah, isn't it crazy? When you eat it too, you're gonna be like, what is happening? Like you watched me make it, I didn't sneak anything in there, I promise.
Chris, this is green.
Yeah, I know. I'm a little confused. Well, I mean, it's kind of egg-like in that way. Egg yolks sometimes get a little green too, don't they? I didn't even really think about that, but yeah, it's really selling it, So I will say I have not tried the sauce and the tartare at the same time, but I can only imagine it's pretty tasty. This was definitely my most experimental one yet. By far.
The smell is unbelievable.
Nice and quiet, that's what I'm talking about. Everybody's eating a little bit. And those of you who've had the egg, do we have a show of hands of yes, this is good?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
It really tastes like egg.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and that's that flavor that you're having, that's black salt. So if you like the eggs, you probably will like black salt, and you are welcome to come grab some for your own culinary uses. I really think like its peak use is in like a nice like hollandaise like sauce. I think it just it really adds that crazy amount of flavor, and it's a very unique flavor. It's not often that you get sulfur in a place that's an edible. That's edible, It's usually sort of an indicator of something that's not something you should eat. But
Were you able to buy that miso at the stoppage?
yeah, the miso. Yep, miso's local. The salt I did have to get online. I couldn't find it anywhere. But I really, really wanted to use it for this dish. And And again, it's really, really good. So there's another one of our lookalikes that we're not going to do, I don't think, because we just kind of found out some other things I wanted to do instead. Was scrambled eggs. And so the scrambled egg recipe, you take mung beans, or you can also use like split peas or lentils, and you soak them, and then you blend them into like essentially like a smoothie, and you cook the smoothie. But the salt goes in that as well, and that helps to make them taste very eggy as well. Because the mung beans, it's almost like you're making a tofu. So tofu, you take beans or legumes, you blend them up, and then the starch from the beans thickens that mixture into the sort of patty that we know as tofu. So you're doing that a very similar thing, but you're doing it in a much smaller batch to make a sort of a scramble instead of, you're essentially making tofu scramble, but you're not going to brick form and then breaking it down. You're just breaking it down right from liquid form. So we were not going to do that, but now you kind of could know how to do it yourself. And the salt is really was kind of key to that and making it sort of taste like eggs. So cool. I'll make a couple plates for staff. If anybody is hungry for more beets, there is more beets here though for sure, more than the toasts I have. I just want to make sure we get everybody who is in the back a chance to try these out. Yeah, hi.
Look at the miso. Is this the miso?
Yeah, that's the miso. Yeah, please take a
I
peek.
just want to say, no. My husband has so many allergies. I just always wonder what's.
Oh yeah, if the miso is edible or not.
Yeah, no, the miso seems to be just fine.
Awesome. You're very welcome. Thanks for coming.
And then the neutral oil, what is it? Just a vegetable
Yeah, that's
oil?
literally just veggie oil.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, I think that's where I'm going to call it for today, at least for the video. I'm going to be hanging out and cleaning up and stuff, so any more questions or anything you might need, please do come let me know. It's been a pleasure. Next month, I actually haven't made up my mind as to what I'm doing yet. It's between, the next 2 months are planned. One of them is going to be, I'm thinking I'm going to do that one last because it's kind of a dessert, so it's sort of the end of our session. But I also really like the idea of doing it next month because the other one is somewhat similar to what we did today, so I don't want to like overlap too much. But the other one is just, it's got a green dipping sauce that is so dear to my heart that I can't eat anymore. And so that's what we're going to be doing for one of the two programs. We'll have that green dipping sauce that some of you may know what I'm talking about. I can't eat it anymore, so we're going to make a lookalike that I've been told tastes almost the exact same. So fingers crossed on that one because I'd love to bring this sauce back into my life. So we'll see you one of the two next months with dessert and or green dipping sauce.